Hey yo, my friends and other people who are checking out this video. So I'm still chilling out here in Crete. This is Thursday of the 21st of May of 2015, and behind me you see a nice little line of houses built into rocks, and just the Mediterranean Sea over there, so it's all good. And today is super hot, it's like 28, 29. And what I wanted to do the video about today is goats. You know what I mean? It's goats, for sure. I want to talk about goats. And I want to explain first what I mean by goats, because those are not the goats that are climbing up these crazy hills over here. You don't see them now. But goats means greatest of all times, as Eminem was putting it today as I was listening to his mixtape. So what does this mean, and what's the context? So, for given that I am doing this blog around and about entrepreneurship and business generally, and for me personally, what I do a lot is I look at successful people in business, and I look at things that make or have made them successful, and I try to use those things and model based on their strategies and concepts and things like that. And I try to incorporate that in the business that I do and how I go about stuff. And so it makes sense that I share my thoughts, or at least I share the names of the people that I have put as role models for myself, right? And so you can see, by the way, over here, a nice little area for people to chill out. And I'm walking down this concrete stone walkway, little path, looks like that. Anyway, so the goats. So first of all, and the biggest one, greatest of all times, and that guy is pretty much the greatest of all times in many ways, if you put it, is Warren Buffett. So those of you who know me, you for sure know that Warren Buffett has been a big inspiration for me, and I just want to say a few things about each of these goats, about each of these heroes of mine, so that you get the context, and maybe if you're inspired, you can check out more about these people yourself. So Warren Buffett, I suppose the two things that I learned most from him, or that was the most inspiring about him, was first of all the importance of reputation, because Warren Buffett is really all about reputation. And sometimes, and there's a fair point to it, that critics say that he's really great at mastering the reputation, so that people think that he can't do no wrong, which is obviously not the case, because he's a penny squeezing aggressive investor, a billionaire. But for sure, reputation is something that he puts as a cornerstone for doing business, and that's extremely important. So I totally relate to that. So that's why I very much pay attention to the importance of reputation, and I want to do business in a way to improve it and to make it a big part of who I am. So that's one thing about Warren Buffett. Let me try to make it shorter. So another thing is that Buffett is a very focused guy, and he only does what he does best, which is capital allocation, which means investing shitloads of money. But the point is, he doesn't spend time on things that normal people spend time on, which is DIY stuff, fixing your house, anything like that. And that seems kind of common sense and if you're making a lot of money, that you just do the business, and then there's a lot of people that do the rest for you. But if you put that as an intentional sort of strategy for building your everyday life, then that really affects it positively, and you can really have a lot of free time on your hands to focus on what you really are most passionate about, whether that's business or anything else. So I think that's a big learning point that I've learned from reading about him and researching him early on, like 10 years ago. The next guy, and I'll try to be shorter, the next guy in terms of investors is Carl Icahn. So Carl Icahn is less known, maybe more notorious investor on Wall Street, also a billionaire, and the reason why he's been a great kind of inspiration for me is that he's an extremely aggressive, a warrior type investor that goes into companies and slices and dices them, and Carl Icahn has been actually the sort of partly a foundational model and an inspiration for the Gordon Gekko the character in Wall Street movie. So maybe it's kind of with not the right connotation at the moment, but for sure Carl Icahn has achieved massive success. He has not focused that much on his positive sort of image or PR, because he goes into companies and he literally like tears them apart and makes them sort of more efficient and makes money along the way. But really what you can learn from him is the kind of focused, aggressive approach to business and no nonsense kind of attitude. It's a really impressive guy. Suggest you check him out. Then there's a guy called Bill Ackman. Bill Ackman is another kind of on the same league, billionaire investor from Wall Street. He's a younger guy, like over 40 or something. Bill Ackman is seen as kind of the baby Buffett, and so what I'm inspired about him is he's cold, rational, always kind of never losing your face attitude to doing business and investing. So when he speaks in interviews and when he speaks about business, it's always very extremely calculated, extremely educated, informed, rational approach. With no emotion, nothing. So that's a very also inspirational, because that's a big aspect of business also, at least in my understanding. Now, in terms of entrepreneurs, so there's many entrepreneurs that are trying to figure out how to shorten the list of people that have inspired me in business. But so let me just try to remember. So from Russia, Oleg Tinkov, he's a very popular guy out there, very flamboyant. But so the reason I like him very much is that he is great, especially in Russia, where it's not so common. He's great at combining, being this superstar business guy, successful entrepreneur, with a freedom or a free self-expression. He does things that he likes. Of course, you can do that when you have shitloads of money. But he kind of, at least he makes it seem easy, so he has his cycling team, he's doing his video interviews and stuff like that, so that's all cool. It's just interesting and inspiring to see how you can be owner of a big business and still have a sort of a free life, and you express who you really are, and you're not kind of limited by the boundaries of a certain perception of how a successful business person would need to look like. Then also a very cool guy in Russia who's been in an inspiration, maybe to a lesser extent, is Sergey Galitsky, who is the owner of Magnet. It's one of the biggest retail chains in Russia. And the reason I like him is that he's very unpretentious, very down to earth. When he speaks in interviews, it's all about common sense, rationality, hard work. Now, from the US, a guy called Aaron Levy, who's, let me take a turn here, who's basically the CEO and co-founder of a company called Box, which is not Dropbox, it's like Dropbox but for companies. And the reason he's been very inspiring for me is because obviously I can relate to him in terms of age, in terms of the context and sort of technology, business, and things like that, and Silicon Valley. But that guy is extremely inspiring from a perspective of his energy, his positive energy, and his extremely impressive public speaking skills. So yeah, if you watch his presentations, his appearances publicly, he's for me, his public speaking skills and basically ability to communicate to an audience are just off the roof. So that's very cool. Now, what else? A guy called Ray Dalio, which of those who are in finance probably will know. He's an owner of a company called Bridgewater Capital, which is one of the biggest hedge funds, massive hedge fund. And what I've learned from him, also a billionaire, and inspired from him is basically the value of working on your weaknesses and the value of giving really honest, from the heart feedback, even though it's painful and uncomfortable. And that's something that I've incorporated a lot in my approach. The Ray Dalio extremely cool, and he has a public book called Principles of Management that anybody can get online on his company's website, and it talks a lot about management. It's one of the greatest for me books on management and managing people. And then there's another guy called Chuck Feeney. Chuck Feeney is an older guy. He is the basically founder of the duty-free shopping, and that's how his empire was called. It was duty-free shopping group, established in the 60s. He made also billions by basically opening up this whole duty-free shopping concept, because it was non-existent before. And he's extremely inspiring in terms of his philanthropy. He's considered as one of the his contribution is one of the biggest of all rich people in America, and he's invested unbelievable amounts of money and energy and time, which is probably more important, into developing Ireland, helping Irish economy, and many other things. So that's extremely inspiring, and how you can make a fortune and give it all away. So I probably am forgetting one or two. Yes, in terms of Latvian entrepreneurs, I suppose it's a bit of a kind of cliched one, but Ainar Šlesers, and everybody in Latvia knows him for sure. Maybe it causes a bit of a smile, but that guy, he's basically an ex-politician, one of the oligarchs of Latvia, which is again a bad sort of context, but that's kind of what it is. But Ainar Šlesers is, I think, for a generation of people in Latvia who are in business, and probably who are not dealing with him directly. So again, just I can talk about these people not from personal, knowledge, but from seeing them from their appearances in public. So Ainar Šlesers is an incredible guy when it comes to vision and energy. And that's, he's been famous for that, and everybody knows it. But it really, if you think about it and think about the amount of initiatives that he has not only come up with, but has pushed through, it's the next level. I suppose if he was in a different country, maybe the whole context around that kind of person would be more positive. It doesn't really matter. I mean, he's in terms of when it comes to business, he's definitely incredible, because he came from nothing and built himself into a very powerful person. So I'm just thinking about the positive things to take away from such examples. So that's all good. That's what I wanted to share. Oh yes, the last one from Germany, Oliver Samwer. So for all of you fintech wannabes, don't know if I'm as part of that, but Oliver Samwer is a guy who is the founder and CEO of basically an incubator, like a big business group called Rocket Internet. He's one of the most aggressive guys, or if not the most aggressive guy in the internet business in Europe. Everybody knows him who's dealing with online around Europe. So he's unique for his extreme speed, focus on speed and execution. So speed and execution is all what Rocket Internet is all about, and they have achieved incredible success. Again, very controversial, but that's up to different people to have different opinions. And so for sure, speed execution, that's what really I admire Oliver Samwer about, and also his ability to put together a fairly unique business model, which is something like a venture capital / business accelerator / business platform, where he basically, with an extreme speed, creates a lot of businesses around the world based on a predefined kind of a model. So I'm totally losing my breath here. It's been 15 minutes, a long video. So I hope at least some of these guys will be an inspiration for you also, because they have been for me, these GOATs, these greatest of all time. And I'll come back to you soon. Peace out.